Hi, welcome to another episode of Real Talks, where we have real conversations with successful business leaders and entrepreneurs. And in today's session, we have Gracie with us, who is the CEO of OKX Singapore. In this episode, she'll share about what she'll say to people who are skeptical about crypto. She'll also be sharing with us how to identify bad managers and when you should walk away. And most excitingly, she'll be sharing about her experiences as a female CEO in this male-dominated space. So let's welcome Gracie.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm surprised I'm the first female interviewee
because
you have.
there's very few females in this space. So you're one of the rare ones. I'm very curious. I mean, since you're the CEO of OKX, right?
Singapore.
OKX Singapore, okay. And it's one of the largest crypto exchange in the world. So maybe you can share a little bit about what got you into crypto in the very first place? Like, were you a believer of it from the very beginning, or is it something that your conviction for it built up eventually?
Several years ago, I was really quite interested in it from a personal capacity because I thought the philosophy behind it, power to the people, you hold on to your assets, nothing can disrupt that, especially post-global financial crisis. That philosophy appealed to me a lot. But I pretty much just dabbled in it just for fun, just to understand what it was about. And then after that, after a while, honestly, I also lost track of what was happening in the industry. And it was surprising to me when I first heard from OKX, when they first reached out. It was surprising to me to realize just how much had been building, even through the winter, when all of us just kind of, lost track of the fad. The fad wore off, and then some of us also dropped out of that space. I was surprised that there were so many builders that were still quietly building through the winter. And so that really reignited my interest in the space. And now I have so much more conviction and passion for it than I did even when I was dabbling in the early days.
I see. I know that you came from the more traditional finance background, right? The government side. And then eventually you are now in the opposite of traditional finance. And I find that there's still a lot of people that are struggling to cross the divide. And a lot of the traditional finance people, I would say, they're very, very skeptical. If you had the chance to say something to all these traditional finance people to kind of open up their minds, what would you say?
Wow, that's a difficult one. I think it's changing a little bit. Obviously this year, and even from I think late last year when the institutional flow started coming in, a lot more people started to see this space more seriously, including the people from traditional finance. And even among the traditional finance peers, I feel like some are definitely further along this journey than others. And so it's a bit difficult to say, but I guess you're asking what would I say to the skeptics and the people who still say that it's a Ponzi scheme or it's a scam or whatever, right? And I would say that actually any new technology or any new innovation will have parts that bring improvements to people's lives and the way people do things. And there are going to be parts that will bring additional risks, higher risks, and can be used for less positive use cases. And it really depends on then what guardrails and safeguards we put in place. And I believe because regulators have been looking at this space for so long, and they now truly understand the space, and they are becoming a lot clearer on what they expect players like ourselves to do in order to mitigate these risks and in order to stop the bad actors from using us as a platform. I would say to them that over time, I believe they will see what we see, that the innovations are real, the utility is real, and in the longer run, the downsides of the technology and innovation and the way it's being used can be successfully mitigated by whatever controls we're putting in place. And we are investing heavily in that.
How many more years do you think this adoption will come about? I think we are still, I would consider us in the early stage or so. And, just like the .com, the internet, it takes a while. So how many more years do you think before it becomes heavily adopted?
Wow, that's tough. That's hard to say.
Or what do you think we must see? Then we know that, it's upon us. And
it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the adoption of blockchain technology, I think that we are far along the journey already, right? And I believe we had a report that we worked on with Blockworks, which I think that statistic was by 2027, 10% of global GDP would be on chain.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's significant. Obviously, we're way below 1% right now, right? But 2027 is really less than 2 years away. So that's obviously a more aggressive estimate. So it depends, right? But if you're talking about, say, crypto adoption, actually, the last time I looked at the data in Singapore, 40% of adults hold at least one cryptocurrency. That's also quite deeply penetrated. So I feel like if we talk about mainstream adoption, there are signs that we're already there. But obviously, if you think about whether crypto and digital assets are already a part of everybody's portfolio in the way that, say, gold or equities or bonds are, then I think we are probably a couple of years away. But a lot of it will really depend on whether institutional adoption continues, on whether regulatory clarity continues, on whether the serious players continue to invest heavily in the safeguards and the building the systems and integrating these systems. I think all that will really affect how quickly that fuller mainstream adoption will become.
I see that OKX has also been heavily investing in this area. I know that recently went to one of the events where we got to use the OKX Pay to buy matcha, buy orange juice kind of thing, right? So how's the response? Do you feel that Singaporeans in general, they're ready to start buying and paying with crypto? Or I mean, like, even the whole cashless thing for Singapore took a while. We are not like China, Shenzhen kind of thing. So yeah, do you think that Singaporeans are all quite open? At least do you see that they're very open to pay with crypto, or still also quite a far away?
I think there's still some user education that needs to be done, but baby steps. So one thing that I'm quite happy about with OKX Pay is how easy the user experience is. And obviously you would know in our space, user experience is a big obstacle to adoption, right? A lot of it is very complicated. So OKX Pay uses a smart account and that self-custody wallet, right? And we know all the issues with self-custody wallet, which is why they haven't really taken off. But in our case, it's really simple. I mean, you used it, right? It's quite seamless. It's almost like using, say, a GrabPay wallet to pay for something.
Yeah.
So, and we find that if you want people to adopt a new technology, you really need to make it easier for them to use it so that it doesn't require a big behavioral change. Because once that's required, then you just don't want to go through that trouble, right? Why bother? So I'm happy to say that I think from a user experience perspective, we've solved that problem. The other, I guess, question people have is, why would I use my crypto to buy anything? Why don't I just use fiat, right? And I think that's a very natural question. So it really, I think, caters to people who have a large proportion of their assets and want to keep their assets in crypto. Then you don't have to do the on and off ramping to pay. That's one. Two, it really helps with cross-border payments, because if you are doing cross-border payments, then we know that digital assets and blockchain and stablecoin and all these things that we talk about a lot these days, they really help to reduce the cost of cross-border transfers. They are just seamless, instantaneous. So all these different benefits that blockchain technology bring to you will then be adopted when you use a product like OKX Pay. So it's less about paying for something with crypto, and it's more about making sure that your payments method integrates all of this new technology that's coming in: self-custody, seamless cross-border transfers, efficient cross-currency conversions. These are the things that we hope products like OKX Pay will bring to our users.
I want to just jump back a little bit on the user experience, because I mean, I wouldn't say I'm promoting OKX or not, but I do think that you guys really have one of the more easier to use, very, very simple user experience. And like what you mentioned, I agree. I think it's not about how high-tech something is. It can be very high-tech, like when MP3 players first started out and all this, but I think Apple did amazing thing where, just with the click wheel and just then managed to get everyone to use it because of their focus on design, on user experience. So is this something that your company all along believe in the user experience part, or is it something that came out along the way?
It's a top priority for us. Top area of focus for us is user experience. We are users ourselves, because if we don't feel like using our own product, something is wrong, right? So we need to make sure that it's a product that we are happy to use and we are proud to share with our users. We get feedback from all our users. We do a lot of user research. My father is somebody that I go to a lot for feedback, because he uses different platforms and he'll tell me, oh, in this case, this is a good feature, or this feature.
How old is your father?
My father is in his 70s.
70s. Wow, so you got a 70-year-old doing the
the
UAT for you.
I must say, when my father first started investing in crypto, I was a bit concerned. The usual concerns, right? Like, will he end up falling for a rug pull or whatever? But it turned out he's been really quite responsible and very considered in how he invests in it, right? And so I think this thing about older folks being less informed may or may not be true in some cases. In my father's case, he does his research. He buys the more stable ones. He really thinks about macro. He does the recurring buy. So it's a discipline kind of drip in, and Yeah. But anyway, so he gives me a lot of feedback because he's a traditional finance guy, right?
Yeah.
So he's used to a certain kind of experience. He's like, oh, this is too complicated. Why do you express it this way? Why do you show it this way? How do you expect me to know I need to go through these steps? So with all of this feedback, I actually put my father's feedback to the product managers, and they actually do try and improve that, enhance that experience that way. So every single person's feedback matters a lot to us because user experience is a top priority.
Yeah, I think that explains why it's so easy to use the app and the whole transferring thing.
There are definitely still areas for improvement.
For sure. But I mean, I used quite a number as well. So I was like, oh, this is quite easy and quite well thought out. So I was just curious, like, because I think the thing is about making something simple.
Yes.
It's actually very difficult.
Intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive. It's actually very difficult. It means that it shows that thought has been went into it. I guess now I hear you explain, of course you have a 70-year-old man testing it for you, but that's brilliant. Okay.
We do deep dives. And sometimes we ourselves, when we go through it, because the app, we are constantly pushing out new features and new products, right? So sometimes even when I look at it after a few days, I'm like, oh, this is a new flow. Does it work? And then I see whether intuitively it works. Same with all my colleagues, right? And if it doesn't, then we will share the feedback with the product team or the engineering team, and they are very receptive to feedback. Obviously, they won't action on every single piece of feedback. They have to see if it makes sense or if it's even buildable, right? But very open-minded.
Okay, I think this is very helpful for all of you guys out there building techs and apps and things like that, user experience. But it doesn't come accidentally, I guess. So, by the way, I just want to take this time to congratulate you guys, OKX, on being HR Asia's top companies to work for in Asia. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think this begs the question, like, first and foremost, congratulations. And how do you do it? Like, how do you make that company one of the top few companies in Asia to people enjoy working for?
Oh, you've done your research. This is so
course.
Current.
This is current. This is like just fresh on LinkedIn.
It's very current. I mean, we're a very young company, as you know, right? In Singapore, right? We're quite... you was call it an OG in the crypto space, but we only set up in Singapore in 2021. And in the last 4 years, wow, if you think about it, it's quite fast. In the last 4 years, we've built up a team of almost 1,000 people in Singapore. So that comes with its own challenges, right? But it also comes with opportunity. So having such a big team of people, fully resource HR team, admin team, these teams that really are just there helping us to make sure that all our workflows are smooth, make sure that the environment is a positive environment. We're very lucky we're a Marina Bay Financial Centre, right? So it's a nice office. People are, I think, well supported physically by the physical infrastructure. But also, I believe that the managers in the company are very focused on making sure that people have what they need to do their best work. Don't get me wrong, right? It's a high stress environment. It's a fast-paced environment, and your people are working really hard. So you want to make sure that first, everyone believes in the cause and believes in the vision that we're working towards. So the vision is very clear. The mission is very clear. I think that really helps step one, right? If you believe in what you're doing, even when you're working really hard, you feel like it's worth it. Then the second thing is you feel like your managers trust you to do your best work. One concept that we take quite seriously is psychological safety. I mean, we all make mistakes, especially when you're experimenting, you're trying, and you're just trying, and you're being at the forefront of the industry and what you're trying to build. Sometimes you make mistakes, or sometimes things don't go the way you expect. And generally, the approach that leaders have in this company is it's okay to make mistakes as long as you know why, and then you don't do it again. So well-meaning mistakes are not then held against you. And I think that makes people feel safe. They make people feel supported. And it makes people want to experiment.
They have there's a culture of they welcome the mistakes, or like...
No, nobody welcomes mistakes.
But like how do you because you all have to test a lot of things, but yet you also have to get the psychological safety, which I understand is sometimes can be a bit tricky to balance. So how do you...
Which is why judgment is very important, because like, users are using it, right? Let's say I test something and it doesn't go well and it affects the user. If it affects on the user experience perspective, that's already not so good. But if it affects the users and they end up making a loss because of it, then that's going to be critical, right? So then in all of this, when we say experiment, push the boundaries, test things out, we're very clear on what the process is. Follow proper process, have a good reason for doing what you're doing, And then have good judgment, exercise good judgment, right? Don't do something that is going to destabilize the system or lead to a worse user experience. That's not experimenting. And that kind of mistake then would be seen as just poor judgment. So when we look at our performance evaluation, when I first joined, one thing that struck me was our performance evaluation. I think the top 2 traits that we assess people on are critical reasoning and hard work. And there's a very good reason why it's in that order. Because we believe that you need to have a strong critical thinking, critical reasoning before your hard work can be put to good outcomes. Otherwise, if you are very hardworking, but your reasoning is not there, then it can create problems, right? And it's not really your fault, right? Because you didn't want to do something bad. You just didn't realize that. You didn't have the critical thinking to help you realize that would have been poor judgment. So we put a lot of emphasis on judgment and critical thinking and critical reasoning. And obviously the right moral grounding, right? Do the right thing is one of our core values. So with all these in place, then with that as the basis, if you try something, it doesn't work out, it's not held against you. It's not seen as a mistake.
Yeah, I remember us talking about having this conversation about looking for people with critical thinking, right? So the question is...
It's critical.
The important question is, how do you hire people with great critical thinking?
It's hard. Hiring is very hard. And we've talked about this before, right? Because you have maybe 2.5, 3 hours over the course of multiple conversations to try and assess someone. And they're also trying to assess you. So you also want to make sure that they fully understand the role, they understand the team setup, they understand the company. It's like dating, right? You can't get it right all the time. In fact, we probably don't get it right all the time. But we do our best. So situational questions is one thing that we try to ask a lot of. Not just what you've done before. So the typical questions are, talk about a particularly challenging task you were assigned at work and how did you make sure that you do that well, or talk about a mistake you've made at work and how did you realize that it was a mistake and then what did you do after that, what have you learned from it. But we also do hypothetical scenario questions. So imagine this scenario, and usually it's from our own experience, right, of things that have gone wrong. But then we give maybe you say this was what this person did. How do you think it worked out, and what would you have done differently? So some of these questions help a little bit because it's all about how you think, and then how you communicate as well is very important, right? I think sometimes even if you're very well-meaning, you have the right idea, if you don't communicate that correctly, a lot of things get lost in translation, especially in a big company like ours, and everything requires cross-functional collaboration. If you can't communicate that intent or the objective or your idea effectively, things can break down as well. So critical thinking and communication, we try to assess for that in interviews. Not always possible, but we do our best.
So do you think that critical thinking is a trait that can be taught, can be developed, or there's no choice? If they have it, they have it. They don't have it, don't have it. And then we just have to hire those who have it.
I think it's quite an unpopular opinion, but my sense after many years is that you either have it or you don't have it.
Okay.
To be fair, I think very few people don't have it, right? I think we all have some level of it. And then it's about learning from experience. And if you have a mentor or a leader or a manager that can coach you through it, I think you then realize more quickly. Otherwise, usually you realize when your judgment was wrong through very painful mistakes, and it's not always the best way to learn. So I would say just thinking, reflect. Actually, I think the ability to reflect also on past experiences, because even if you didn't fail, something went well, but then you think, oh, actually that could have gone better. How could it have gone better? Then you would have learned from that without having to make a mistake in order to learn that. So I think everybody has some basic level of critical thinking, but then the ability to reflect helps you to then learn and hone that skill over time. And I think it's just about being open-minded and introspective and reflective and being open to feedback, right? Because people around you sometimes have perspectives that you could have missed. So if you're open to them and you ask them, hey, how do you think that went? How could it have gone better? And maybe let your ego down a little bit. It's not always easy to hear. I think that helps.
You believe the more the person reflects, the more the person
I believe so.
Critical thinking. Okay.
Because you can't always get it right? And you can't always get it wrong.
Yeah.
So always reflect.
I don't know, because I also try to teach and mentor and coach people in critical thinking, but I mean, not always successful. Some really have it and pick things up much faster, some don't. But after a while, I realized after maybe X amount of time, then maybe cannot. And I also have to spend my time wisely. So I'll go on to the next person, which I think got a chance to be developed, who already have critical thinking. But sometimes I always wonder, maybe it's like I'm not patient enough, which I'm not a very patient guy. So maybe I'm not patient enough, but maybe another style, another thing, and the person might be able to develop this critical judgment or critical thinking. I mean, it is what our Singapore education system tries to pride itself in doing, but I'm not sure the level of success, right?
I think it's also, again, situational, right? I believe that as with relationships, right, some people are just not a fit. So sometimes the environment is not the right setup for this person, and maybe this person's judgment in one area is a little bit lacking, but this person would have been great in different environment, right? So for example, I think my judgment of what looks good, say in marketing, would definitely be much, much poorer than somebody that is talented in marketing and experienced in marketing. And I believe that everyone has their place, right? And sometimes they don't work out in a certain environment and they're seen to have poor judgment, but actually it's just that the judgment is not aligned with the way this company or this team thinks about things.
Okay, then I have an exciting question for you.
Yes.
So if a person doesn't work out at this place, will you shift the person to another place or will you let go of the person?
I have done both.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it really depends on whether, based on my assessment, this person's strengths and areas of growth are aligned with this other area. Because I think, and obviously it depends on the person's interest as well, right? Sometimes I think this person could be suited to this role, suited to this team, but they don't think so, and they want to continue looking for something that is more aligned with what they want. So I would say I've done both, but generally it takes several conversations to figure out what the best thing to do for the person and the team is. And sometimes it just has to end, unfortunately.
I see.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, how about me?
Yeah.
Like,
we should make this a two-way conversation.
I think in general, in SME, we try to develop them to the best of its ability. Sometimes, so last time I used to shift them around, but then it creates an environment where the person keeps going across and not doing well in one department, in the next department, in the next department. Then after a while, we realized it may not be a skill, it may be the person's issue. So somewhere along the line, we came with the idea that actually how you do something is how you do everything. So, I mean, there are some cases where really this person is much suited for another department somewhere else. But most of the time, because they came applying for the job for this particular position, so we should gauge them based on this particular role they applied. And if they are not a good fit, then we end it there lah. Yeah. So just end it.
I can see that as well.
Yeah. Because most of the time, there's always these people that, kind push into special projects, that kind of thing. Then go around. Then actually every department also don't really want them, or like it just doesn't work out. And it's very painful. It's very long and drag out process.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't work for either party, right? Sometimes it's better. And I've seen everyone I've seen across my, I wouldn't say how long, long career, who had one role not work out in one company has always found something that they've done much better at the next time. So I think that's why I believe that there's a place for everyone. And it's just about finding the right place and the right environment.
I see. So I think one of the things I want to say is that while doing my research, I also realized that it's been a good year for OKX. So you all win many awards and all. And just in case you all don't know, I'm sitting beside Fortune's top 100 most powerful woman in Asia. Okay, so I mean, and we also say, right, you're the first female guest we have on podcast. So I thought that this is a fantastic opportunity to ask you some questions, because I think, like what you mentioned, it's quite rare to find a female leader, especially in this space, in the crypto space, in the finance, and occupying such a high position. I think the other female CEO I know is probably, I think, the DBS CEO, Tan Shushan or something. So yeah, just curious, how was the journey getting to here? Was it very painful? Were there obstacles or glass ceiling that you needed to break? Or how was it?
I think the journey to leadership positions anywhere is often fraught with different challenges, but also tailwinds, right? People who support you, mentors, leaders who believe in you. And I feel like through my career, I've been extremely fortunate every step of the way. Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned. I must say that, so earlier this year, International Women's Day, we had a panel discussion in OKX where we talked about this. And reflecting on my history as part of that conversation, I realized that in the first half of my career, I spent 10 years at MAS. Oh, now you can do the math. I spent 10 years at MAS. And the first half of my career, I never ever, I think, thought about being a woman at work. It never even occurred to me because it felt like everything else mattered much more than whether I was male or female. And I realized that actually I was very fortunate to have been in an environment where it didn't occur to me that being female may come with certain challenges or perceptions, right? Because it just wasn't a thing. I felt like MAS was very equal opportunity. The women spoke up as much as the men. There was no perception bias of any sort. So that was my experience. And so when I went out to the private sector, then I started to realize that there were some of these things. And I don't think anything was, okay, in some cases it was a little bit more intentional than others, but in most cases, I don't think people even realized it. But there are some, I think, perception biases. In general, I feel like women have to walk a very fine line. If you speak out a little bit more, people think that you are aggressive, you must own the conversation. If you speak up less because you feel like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be seen to be speaking so much, then they say, oh, maybe you don't have a mind of your own or you have no opinions. So even how much you speak up feels like it needs to be carefully calibrated so you don't come across as too much or too little for people. Or if you have strong opinions, then you also have to be careful to not come across as too aggressive. But if you don't, then you'll come across as not being assertive enough. So it's just this very fine line.
How do you balance it?
So in the earlier stages of my career, I tried to take feedback.
Okay.
And then in 1 week, I got feedback through my manager from 2 different people. One said I talked too much at meetings and dominated the conversation. The other one said I talked way too little and came across like I had no opinions. And then at that point, I was just like, okay, how do I deal with this? So then I went to a respected female leader, a previous manager of mine, and I asked her. And then her feedback to me was, you have to figure out what you are comfortable with. And at some point, take from the feedback what's constructive, and then the rest of it, just leave it. Because everyone have their own opinions. And in the end, you have to shape your own voice, your own leadership, your own presence. And that was, I think, very valuable advice from me that I've kind of held on to today, because you can't please everyone. And I feel like it's a little bit harder as a female in the workplace, just because there are these preconceived notions on what women should be, how they should behave, how they should look like. And I guess it's just difficult to please everyone.
I think one thing you mentioned just now was that you had another female leader to look up to or to ask for feedback and advice, right? And I realized this actually similar to you. I mean, to me, a leader is a leader. I don't care the gender and things like that. And when I was being trained to be a leader, also same thing, you model yourself on the successful leaders and all. Yep. And what happened was that when I was mentoring or coaching some of the female staff under me, right, I also tell them, hey, you can look for some successful female leaders, which then at that point of time, I realized they have very few to look up to. Like for me, I can look up to people like, let's say, Obama, Lee Kuan Yew. I can immediately pull out some names. But when it comes to female leaders, they were like, I don't know many. Then I'm like, okay, let me think of some. Then I only know like maybe, the DBS CEO, maybe the CEO of Pepsi. Then I realized like, wow, there's so few representation, a few role models that at least known one, the famous ones. And we don't talk about the celebrities, right? So were there any female role models you look up to and why?
I think there were quite a few, but they're all more personal contexts. So people I work with, people I work for, even people that reported to me, and just strong women who were very capable, willing to speak their minds, but also knew what the right balance was. So in all of these, I feel like I learned a lot. But you're right. Sometimes I think, okay, in this situation, is there like a female role model that I can look up to? Like someone famous or someone with established, someone who's written books, right? For example. And it's just very, very hard. So I've gone back over and over again to the advice that my colleague gave to me so many years ago, that you just have to figure it out yourself, your approach, your voice, and it has to work for you. And if it doesn't work, then get the feedback and then see what's constructive and adapt. And then you just move on from there.
Well, hopefully you will be the example for many other female leaders out there.
I'll try. I mean, I'm still learning. But one thing that I've been quite happy about is that since I've joined this company and this industry, quite a few women have come up to me in the company or outside and said that seeing me do this role has given them hope, I think, or belief that they can also kind of break through whatever ceiling they imagine is there for themselves. So I feel like that makes me happy, and that feels fulfilling, that I am, at least me being here is signaling that it's possible, right? And sometimes you don't know where your journey might lead you, but you don't have to feel like it's going to end at some point.
I see. Can I go a little bit more on the personal side?
Yeah.
Just want to check, like, cause also as a female leader, right? How do you balance, let's say, things back at home? Because females usually have to manage a lot of things in the household as well. So, like for the guy, usually just go and work, and then the female take care. But as a female now, you also take care of stuff at home and work. How do you balance it? Are there sacrifices you had to make, or?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of these things recently where women are saying things like there's always the expectation that they have to run the household, whereas men get to delegate. That's why women always feel a lot of guilt when you don't have that. Maybe you don't feel like you've let somebody down, whether it's at home or at work or in your social circle. I feel like I have that as well. And I constantly feel like, okay, I need to take care of this, I need to take care of that. I need to plan for this, I need to plan for that. And I feel bad when I drop a ball or two. But I don't have kids. And I feel like women who have kids experience this much, much more. Last year, I was very keen to hire someone. She was very keen to join us. In the end, she couldn't. She decided not to because her daughter was going to do her PSLE next year. And she decided that she needed to be there for her daughter. And I really respect that, right? But it was sad for me to see how disappointed she was. And there's so many of these stories. Thankfully, I haven't had that because I just not having kids is already, I think, one big thing that doesn't exist to put further demands on my time. And I have to say, as cliche as this must sound, that my husband has been a big support because he is very relaxed. He is very chill. He makes no expectations. And in fact, he takes care of most things at home, in the household, right? In our house. So that really helps. So I feel fortunate and grateful. But I know that it's a lot tougher and a lot more challenging for a lot of my female peers.
I see. So the secret is marry well, basically.
And I think sometimes it's about setting expectations. It just happened that I got married quite late in life, right? And I got married late in life because I had a certain vision of my life. So I had to explain that very clearly up front. And so I would say at least my husband knew what he was getting himself into. Yes. But it's funny now because my mom has kind of given up on me completely. And if she has any recipes or any tips for household cleaning or anything else to do with the house, she conveys them to my husband.
Oh,
and help
I see. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Were you describe? I mean, I love it that you say you have a kind of a vision for your life and of sorts. So will you describe yourself as a very ambitious woman, or?
Actually, no. My vision of myself was really more about enjoying my life.
I see. Okay.
But I mean, I enjoy work. I've always enjoyed work. And again, I think this is one of the things that I feel very grateful for, that I've always been able to find jobs that really motivated me, energized me, and fulfilled me. So having a fulfilling career is, I guess, one key part of how I want to lead my life. But the other part is really having time for my parents. I'm an only child, right? I want to spend time with them as much as I can, and being able to spend time with my friends and to experience life, right? Travel, go to have good food and wine. So these things are important. And that's why I think for a long time, I wasn't even sure if I wanted a family, right? And now I have decided to take this step, which I'm also happy about. So I guess the vision also evolves with time when you think about what's fulfilling, and it's different for everyone, different stages. So
I see. So what advice would you have for like females who are just entering the workforce, navigating this workspace? I think you are in one of the spaces, right? Number one, that is predominantly male, right? Crypto, right? All the people, trainers, speakers I see are males. Number two is like finance, which is also a very male-dominated space as well. So
tech, I was
in tech, you're in tech. So you are in like the three most, what do they call it? The patriarchy, right? So yeah, do you have any advice for the females in this space, or in general, how can they navigate this space?
I think the important thing to realize is that if you enjoy your work, it's much easier to be good at it. And if you're good at your work, it's much easier to gain respect from people who work with you. And I think that's the foundation on which a successful and fulfilling career has to be built. And so my advice is not really gender specific, right? I think everyone should try and find something that they feel good doing, whether it's because they're passionate about it, or because they're good at it, or because they think it's extremely fulfilling and leads to a an end outcome that they believe in. But if you believe in that, then the hours go by a lot faster and it's just easier to be good at it. And once you have that, then it's a positive cycle, right? That then keeps generating, and then you start to see, because if people respect you and they think you're doing good work, they'll give you opportunities, they'll open up doors for you. I think that's important. And I think early in your career, think carefully about the people that you're working with and working for, and think about whether they are mentors, good mentors that can give you the type of guidance that can really supercharge your learning. Because I think that's going to be particularly important in guiding you onto the right path and making sure that you get the right advice and tips. Because there will be times that you will stumble and you'll doubt yourself and you'll wonder, am I on the right path? And you need these maybe lampposts, guiding posts to bring you somewhere where you can be yourself and be happy being yourself and shine by being yourself.
Can you share how do you find your mentors? I mean, you did mention a few times that your mentors really guided you, give you very good feedback. But how do you find all these good mentors?
It's interesting you ask, because I've realized that I've never sought them out.
Okay.
They've just always been there. And I think it's a mixture of luck that I've been surrounded by good people, strong people who took a personal interest in my development. And it's something to be really grateful for, right? Nobody owes you anything. Why should they take time out of their lives to give you advice or anything? But the other part is I actively seek out feedback. And from everyone, right? It doesn't really matter who. Because I feel that we all have blind spots and we all think that we're doing something right when we're doing, obviously, right? Otherwise we wouldn't do it that way. But then without people around you telling you, actually, that wasn't the way you should have done that or said that, and being able to take that on board and think about it and reflect and then integrate into how you want to approach the same matter or the same topic the next time around, you won't have that. And I feel like it's also like one of these things where if somebody gives you advice or feedback and then you clearly take it on and you improve on it because of that, then they would feel more like they should do this again for you next time, right? If not, they just feel like they just wasted their time and they don't come back again. So I've not actively looked for mentors. They've always been around. And I feel like hopefully everyone has these people that are just around. And it's just about having the right conversation with them to say, hey, what do you think about that situation? I feel like I could have done it better. What do you think? And being able to have that open conversation with them and make them feel like they want to have the conversation with you. I think that's important. I do know that there are other people who have approached this in a much more intentional way, where they will look around them and look for leaders that are in their sphere and say, okay, actually, I want to learn from this leader. And then they will approach this leader and say, can you be my mentor? In most cases, people will say yes.
Okay.
Because I think we all want to pay it forward, right? If we feel like we've benefited from somebody's mentorship, we want to pay it forward. So asking that respectfully, of course, and maybe being clear with what you want to learn about, what you want them to guide you on, I believe that could also be a very productive way to get people on your side to help you along the journey.
I see. I think what you mentioned about asking is one thing, but I think besides learning how to find good mentors, being a great mentee is important. So I think because you mentioned that you will take on the feedback and then it forms a cycle where they want to continue to share with you, as compared to there might be people who go around asking, hey, can you be my mentor? But then when they give the advice or the feedback, then they never do anything about it. So I guess the fact that you have so many mentors that you learn from and you take on advice, I guess they must be seeing that you actually apply the feedback they give to you. So I guess, yeah.
Not all and all.
No.
Sometimes it's a bit hard to change parts of ourselves, right? I don't think we also need to beat ourselves up too much about this. I used to when I was younger, earlier in my career. Then I realized that it takes time. And sometimes you need to really figure out yourself. Another thing to add is that these mentors don't all have to be people who work with you. It could be your friends, right? You could tell your friends about something that happened at work and then ask their opinion on it. It could be your family. Go home and ask your family like, oh, I did this at work. I said this at work. And this was the result. Do you think I could have done something different? Generally, they'll have certain perspectives as well because they know you very well in a way that your colleagues may not know you very well. and they'll be able to see longer term historical patterns that point to something. It takes a village.
I guess it takes a village to raise a leader, a good leader.
That's right.
You also mentioned that one of the things is to enjoy the work, and it's easier to gain respect and all, right? I mean, I also believe in it. I like to scale business, grow business, and to me, it's very enjoyable. So it's not really that work to me. But every time when I say this and when I hear people say this, then the follow-up question they always ask is, how do you know you enjoy this? Or how do you find something that, you enjoy? How do you find out that you actually love this role or this job?
Generally, I feel if I wake up in the morning and I look forward to going to work, it's a good sign. Sometimes, even when I find a job that fulfills me and motivates me, some mornings I still dread going to work because there's a particularly difficult task or it's a challenging period. So that's fine, right? It's just a blip.
Yeah.
But over the course of the course of that period when you're doing the job, I think the important thing to ask yourself is, does this job give me the kinds of the fulfillment that makes me feel like, oh, okay, I put in the work, I got this outcome, and I feel really good about it, and I feel like it mattered to somebody, whether it's myself, my team, the end user, the stakeholder, whoever it is, right? I think that's going to be important. So generally, I found that when I didn't feel that way, it really isn't something that can change. Nice. If you feel like you've given enough time, say 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and you feel that you go to work every day and it's just not bringing you the fulfillment and satisfaction, then it's not worth it. We spend way too much time at work to be feeling like that. I haven't really been very deliberate in planning my career. So I never really know what the next step is going to be. And sometimes it's just about having open conversations with people, right? Your peers, your friends, they talk to you about everything. And in those conversations, they talk about industries, they talk about the economy, they talk about different types of jobs that they do. And over time, you shape certain perceptions. Obviously, this is a lot easier when you've been around for a longer time like I have. And I can imagine for younger people who are just entering the job market, it may seem a lot less clear. Then to me, it's just about experimentation, right? You have a sense of what you think you enjoy. You have a sense of what you think you do not want to do. Then figure out the job scope, figure out the industry, figure out the company. And these days, there's so much more research material on hand, right? Remember when maybe you're younger than me, but when I first graduated, I could not find anything on the internet, right? And now everything's on the internet. You can go on Glassdoor, see reviews about companies. You can go read the social media posts, see what they're all about, see what they focus on, see what they prioritize and what they celebrate. These things are very important indicators. And I think it's going to be a lot easier to then say, okay, this feels like a place that I would like to be a part of. We didn't have that previously, but now I think it's something
more information is easier.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's right.
This is a question I ask many CEOs because recently I came back from a retreat of all the very successful businessmen and all, and I realized that a lot of them are either a bit burnt out or health is in a very poor shape. So, I mean, you're working in the finance, crypto space, which is quite stressful or very stressful with all the volatility here and there. How do you manage this stress, or are there any things that you do to prevent yourself from burning out or keep yourself grounded?
That's an interesting question. I feel very, very busy. I don't really feel stressed.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I don't burn out, right? I can feel busy and burn out from busyness.
How do you manage that?
I take breaks. I mean, I just came back from a holiday and that's why I'm quite tanned.
Drink more wine.
We do not advocate drinking. In the past, before my knees gave up on me, I used to go scuba diving. And to me, that was a big deal because I'm afraid of water.
Okay.
And I had a couple of incidents underwater, which made me even more afraid of water. But then I decided that scuba diving brought me so much joy and so much perspective, I had to continue.
Wait, so you're afraid of water, but you...
Because of the marine life, right? Okay. So one thing that I realized was that with scuba diving in the early days was that the moment I hit the reef and I look at the fish and I just watch them in their lives, then it feels like whatever problems or things I was stressing out over are just so small, right? Compared to this, it's a completely different world, right? So that immersive experience, that out of body experience, I think brings you perspective and it makes you realize that life and the world is just so much bigger than you and your problems. Obviously, there are real problems in the world and people have real problems. I'm not saying that those are not valid. They are. It's just that when you see these things, it helps you remember, okay, I need to reframe my thinking, right?
Perspective.
It's okay. Perspective.
Yeah.
And so for me, that activity was scuba diving. The activity that will help me remind me and give me a jolt out of my situation, which it's very easy to just get sucked in and feel like, oh wow, my problems are the biggest in the world. For me, the activity was scuba diving to lift me out of it. And I'm sure everyone has something like that, right? Now, because my knees are like that, I just end up watching Netflix, which is a very different type of activity. But it in the same way, it also brings you into a different world, introduce you to different ways of thinking and different people's lives. It's this, I think, that ability to, for 30 minutes, 1 hour, to forget your problems and immerse yourself in somebody else's world, whether it's reading, Netflix, underwater, scuba diving, or anything else. I think that's very important to reset. How do you, I mean, you are very stressed out. How do you do it?
Number one, last time I used to be way more stressed out, but I picked on things like yoga, meditation, reading, Pilates. So I think those have helped me. But when I first started, it was quite bad because I remember I was just paying like $300 an hour to my yoga teacher to learn how to breathe because all the breathing is here, so you have to like breathe deeper and all. So but after a while I realized that I need to manage ourselves better. I mean, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Yes.
But so I'm always very curious, like how all the C-suites, how they manage. I mean, which is why I realized that eventually when you go for those health retreats, then you see all the people, the same type one. They're either leading a company, entrepreneurs, burned out, and then they are there to maybe, like what you mentioned, escape, or not say escape, but to go into another world, to immerse themselves, to reset so that they can go back and feeling refreshed and all.
Yeah. I mean, I think even little things, right? Like I used to go to the night safari a lot. Every time I felt a bit stressed out, I'll go to the night safari.
Why the night safari?
Because it's such an easy thing to do, right?
Okay.
It's after work.
Okay.
You just go there, hop on the tram, go around, look at these small animals in their nocturnal habitat. And again, they couldn't care less about your problems, right? And then you think about them, and it's quite sad that they are not in their natural habitat. But, I mean, then it makes you just kind of snap out of your own world and immerse yourself in a different world. And it's quite an easy one. And then you feel refreshed. The rainforest is also very nice. The night sky is very nice.
Last time in our conversations, I remember you're talking about like how I talk to other CEOs, like, hey, how do you de-stress, or how do you manage all these things, right? And we talked about how it's important to have this community of leaders, because honestly, at the very, very top, it's harder to find people who understand what you're doing or some of the stresses you're facing. So have you found a community like that? How do you navigate this?
I have many communities. It's not all CEOs. Because CEOs have a certain type of challenge, but even then it's very industry specific, it's very company specific, it's very dependent on your team and all that stuff, right? So my communities are all scattered. I have a bunch of girlfriends I've been very close to since I was a kid. They would tell me anything, including where they think I need to do better, and they're very honest with me.
Wow.
Obviously, again, I have my family, right? My family are my worst critics, but very well intentioned. So you can take a lot of criticism from them without feeling too bad about it. And then I have those in like pods of people who I've ever worked with or worked for, or people who have worked for me in different environments, and they're all very, very valuable sounding boards in their own right. And then obviously the community, right? So, I mean, I consider you and some of your team to be also part of my community. I think Cryptoknight is a very important community for us as a company, but also leaders like yourself. When we talk about problems, our coffee chat was very helpful for me. You gave me a lot of perspective, a lot of tips that I then took back and applied into what I was going to be doing with my team and my plan for the coming year. So I feel like these conversations, there isn't really one formal community that I have in mind, but every single conversation I have is a conversation I'm having with my community, and everyone is contributing to how I think.
Multiple micro communities.
Yes, yeah.
Your villages, your different villages.
Yes, of course. When we do our events, then it's really, really nice to see all of the different partners come together, and obviously then this community is the most relevant at this point, right? Because industry-wide challenges that we're working on, that's a thing to talk about. And over Token and Singapore FinTech Festival, there were a lot of these opportunities to do that and have those conversations. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm sure in the coming months, we will pick this up again in a more informal basis over coffee chats, over lunches, and then we will just discuss our own challenges and what we intend to do about it.
I think you mentioned quite a bit about when people entering the workforce, what they should be looking for, what kind of jobs. And you also mentioned about it's important to find good mentors and maybe even good bosses, right? Maybe you had some experiences with some bad bosses. Like what are the things that they should avoid? Jack Ma always say, right, don't look for a high pay job at the start. When you're in your 20s, right? Don't look for a good boss. And then when you're in 30s, maybe master the art. But what happens is that majority of the people, especially when they first enter, finances is still a big thing, especially in Singapore. So yeah, how will you navigate this space? Finding a good boss.
I think a good boss, first and foremost, is someone that you can trust to have your back. And I don't mean that they will have your back regardless of whatever you do, right? But it's just somebody that you can trust to do the right thing by you and to try their best to set you up for success. And so obviously, not everyone can be so lucky all the time. And sometimes you are going to have experiences where you feel like your boss not have your back for whatever reason, right? It could be because they themselves are in a weaker position, or it could be that they, just optimizing for their own career and not their team's career. And there are going to be very clear signs when that happens. So if you feel that's happening and you feel like suddenly I can't trust my boss to not throw me under the bus when something goes wrong, I can't trust my boss to be honest with me with on things like, for example, what the expectations are, what my performance is like. If you don't feel safe and you cannot trust your boss, that's a very bad situation. And I would say it's time to look elsewhere.
I see. I love the point where you say optimizing for their own career success or optimizing for the team success. And you say that there are going to be clear signs. Can you elaborate a bit on that? Have you been in this kind of situation, or when do you know it's okay, really it's time for me to go and find a better boss or find a better job elsewhere?
I have been in similar situations. So for example, if your boss is asking you to do things that you feel uncomfortable with, whether it's because it's not the right thing to do for the company, or it's just you feel it's inappropriate or improper, the answer is no, you need to get out of there. If your boss is taking credit for what you are doing, it's time to get out of there. If your boss is pinning judgment error that they made on you, it's time to get out there.
Okay.
Actually, the moment you find out that your boss has lied to you about anything at all, it's time to get out of there. And that happens a lot, right? Nice. Let's say your boss told you that your performance rating was this and they fought for you, but the other leader said no. And then subsequently you hear through the grapevine that it was the opposite that happened. Then you know that that's not a boss you can trust.
The trust is broken.
It's time to get out of there. Yeah. Generally, I feel, and this is really up to the person or individual, right? It's good to clarify because sometimes things can get lost in translation, and maybe what you hear through the grapevine is not what actually happened. So it's important to clarify, but not everyone's going to be comfortable clarifying. If you don't clarify, then you're always going to have doubts. Then it's going to be very difficult to have a relationship with that boss anyway. Then it's time to move on, whether it's true or not. I feel the best thing to do is clarify. If you clarify and the answer is not satisfactory, which was in my case, the way it was, then it's time to look for another opportunity elsewhere because the trust has been broken.
I think the one interesting thing is that, every time they always say, look for a good boss, right? I think what you indicated or what you shared about how to identify a good boss is useful, but also you can't find out whether the boss is good unless you start working for them, right?
Correct.
So it's also a bit of
everybody looks like a good boss at the interview.
At the start, at the interview.
Yes.
So they always tell me how do I know? And then even if you go in already after 1-2 years, then they're like, oh, maybe this is not the boss that, then they have no choice, what you say, when you're...
Unfortunately, sometimes it takes time to figure out how someone is. But sometimes at the interview also you can ask certain questions, I believe. And you can tell, right? Let's say you ask the boss how he, thinks about team structure. How things about team structure. What he expects from his team.
Question, guys.
Interviews are two-way conversations. I firmly believe that. I feel like candidates come in feeling like they need to impress the interviewer. But at that time, it's as much for you to assess the company as it is for them to assess you, right? So don't be afraid to ask questions.
This is helpful.
Ask the questions. Ask what the boss's focus areas are, depending on how they talk about themselves, talk about their successes, talk about their team successes, talk about what they are planning to do for the coming year. or the 2 years after that, it gives you a very clear sense, in most cases, of how that person thinks about the team, the company, and themselves. And the more self-centered someone is, the higher chance that they are going to be a less than ideal boss for you.
See. Okay. So now speaking of bosses and leaders, so what do you think are 3 traits of very good leaders that you have worked for, or a leader that you think is a very good leader?
Trust. I go back to trust, but I'm trying to figure out what traits lead to trust. I think being open-minded and being an open communicator are very key in that, right? So if they're open-minded, they don't always think that what they know is best. They trust you to come to them and show them a different perspective, and then they'll engage in that conversation with you. I think that's a good leader. That's the open-minded part. Open communicator, they are honest with you. If they think you're doing a poor job, they tell you why they think you're doing a poor job. They think you're doing a good job and they'll try and fight for you. They'll tell you that. They'll help you set you up for success. You shouldn't feel like, oh, when I want to have a conversation with my boss about where I'd like to be in my career, it's a difficult conversation. It shouldn't be.
Okay.
Your boss's job is to set you up for success and to show you a clear path for you in the medium to long term. So that's important. So open-minded, open communicator. And then the third one is just really someone that will shield you from things, right? You should be able to go to your boss and say, I'm having challenges with this situation. Can you give me advice? If they give you advice, that's great. If they can't give you advice, but they tell you, I will take care of the situation, I will shield you from it, don't worry about it, that's good. So they're supportive. That's important. So I would say these 3 things: open-minded, honest in communication, and supportive. I think are the critical elements of a strong manager.
Do you also use this as a criteria to promote your managers?
That's an interesting question. Generally, when I assess the managers that report to me, I look at one...
Besides the critical thinking, which we
Correct,
agree.
yes, critical thinking. Okay, them being a good manager for their team is one part of it. But they need to also be a good manager in a way that delivers the team outcomes that are expected. Okay. Because there's some managers that are really, really good managers. They're very nurturing. Their teams trust them a lot. Their teams work very well with them. But for some reason, the team doesn't deliver. And that's an unfortunate situation, right? And it could be for a variety of factors, both within and outside of this team and manager's control. So then that becomes important, right? Is it within their control? Could they have done something about it? But I believe that the performance of the team is also equally critical as whether the manager is a strong manager. And I think the strongest managers will have to be able to make the tough decisions when the team is not delivering to do what is required to get the team to become a high-performing team.
Wow, this is gold, guys. I mean, it's very seldom where we have someone who I think have to lead like 1,000 over employees, right?
Oh, no, I don't lead all the 1,000 people in Singapore.
But you have to work with quite a big organization and maneuver, and I think what you shared is really very insightful. I mean, even if it's not OKX Singapore, I mean, in your previous companies, you do have to lead quite a number of them as well. So
I would say mid-sized teams. Mid-sized teams. But the challenges scale with the size of the team.
Yes. Very, very, very humble. So, so maybe I think I just want to ask you, so what's upcoming next for OKX or even in the crypto space? Like any exciting developments coming up, do you think?
I'm quite excited about what we have planned for the coming 6 to 9 months. Yeah. I mean, one of the areas that we've been focusing on, as always, right, with OKX, as you know, product is a big focus area for us. We believe in the product is good, it speaks for itself. Users will come and everything will follow from that. So we are looking to expand our product offering in the coming months. Some very exciting products in the roadmap, things that some people like you and your community have asked for. So we will share that and announce that when ready. We are also planning a few community meetups. I mean, you know, for us, all these community events are huge, right? They're very important for us, and we put a lot of effort into it, just as you guys do. And we're very fortunate that in the past 1.5 years, since we got our license, actually no, slightly more than a year, since we got the license, we've developed quite a strong community across different areas of the sector. So we are planning events across all of these to engage again with these different communities. So looking forward to that, to strengthening our product offering in the coming year and also strengthening our relationships and bridges in the coming years.
Oh, nice. So, then maybe before we end off, can you share with us? I think crypto space is one that's growing quite rapidly and evolving very fast. Do you have any tips for our viewers, for anyone who might be interested to step into this space? Or
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, I think this space carries a lot of promise, but there are also some risks involved, right? And so I would say do your own research. Always do your research, and also be very careful. Crypto, like traditional finance, like insurance, people also fall victim to scams. So be very careful. If anything sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't true. So be very skeptical. Never give away your keys, for example. Never give away your passwords. These feel like very basic, simple things to do, but somehow when you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, they find a good reason to explain to you why you should give this up. Always question and don't do that. And I believe that most people already know this, but this space has a lot of different types of platforms that you can engage with. Do your research on the platforms as well. Use a licensed exchange. It can be OKX, it can be any of the other exchanges in Singapore. Use a licensed exchange because licensed exchanges have to comply with very strict requirements from MAS. And they have put these requirements in place to protect you, protect your assets, and make sure that you're not going to be at risk. I mean, there's always going to be some risk with investments, but requirements make sure that your assets are safeguarded in the right way, they're segregated in the right way. Look into the exchange's proof of reserves, which show how much reserves they have to back up the customer assets with them. These things are very important indicators of whether your money and your assets are going to be safe with that player. So I would say do your research on not just the tokens that you're looking to invest in, but also on the platform, and also any claims of anyone that come to you. Try to be really, really skeptical of what they're saying to you.
all right.
Unless it's Cryptoknight, of course. You can trust these guys.
All right, but thank you very much, Gracie. So yes, hope you enjoyed the podcast as much as I did enjoy doing it. So if you all have any questions or anything, can type in the comments. And if you all have any other guests that you would like us to bring aboard, just type it in the comments as well, and we'll do our best to try to invite them for the next episode. All right, cheers.